Over the next few decades, the metaverse will become immensely more advanced and integrated in our daily lives. Some people think the metaverse is just a hype. Others believe it to be the greatest evolution of the internet. Together with the sharpest minds in this space, we are going to explore the future of the metaverse. We want to understand the impacts of this new world, and in this show, we will find the answers. Welcome to Metaverse Mentors. Welcome to Metaverse Mentors. This is your host, Samir Badawi, and today I'm with someone who I think you're all gonna find incredibly interesting. Today, I'm with Dr. Mark van Rijmenam. Mark is a PhD from the University of Technology in Sydney, Australia. He's the founder of Datavlog and Maven, where they're combating the current infodemic, helping the world deal with misinformation and fake news. Internationally, he's one of the most highly sought after and influential speakers when it comes to blockchain and AI. He has spoken to more than 100,000 people in more than 20 countries. And a fun fact, he was the first speaker in history on TEDx who delivered his keynote from virtual reality. He's also worked with leading technology companies like Capgemini, Fujitsu, and Microsoft. And he's also been the author of 3 best-selling management books on AI, machine learning, and blockchain. This year, his new book will come out, Step into the Metaverse, How the Immersive Internet Will Unlock a $1 trillion Economy. Welcome at Metaverse Mentors. How does someone become a futurist? Because when I started university and I wanted to pick a master degree, there wasn't really a program that says you can follow this track and you can become a futurist. How do you become that, Mark?
That's an interesting question. I think it's just it's about having a good understanding of how the world is changing and how technology is impacting the world. And so, to be honest, I don't call myself a futurist. I call myself a future tech strategist, which is a slight difference. Maybe just a bit semantics, but for me, it means is I look at future technologies and how they impact organizations and how they impact our society. And I think it comes with sort of having a gift or a talent, or I don't know, having the capabilities to understand how technologies are changing the world, and to be able to extrapolate current technologies and to see what their impact 5 or 10 years from now will be. And I think that's sort of how do you become one? I guess it's just by practicing and by learning by doing. And I've been doing this for over a decade now. And I'm always looking into the new technologies focused on information technologies, big data, blockchain, AI, and how they are changing our society. And just by talking to hundreds of people, by reading dozens of books and hundreds of articles, by writing myself, by doing my research, by doing a PhD, I guess that's how you become a future tech strategist.
Very interesting. And it seems to me that the pace at which the technology advances has been exponentially taken off the last year. So I can imagine that it's really it becomes challenging and more challenging to get up with all these developments as a future technologist.
Yeah, definitely. And I always say that we live in exponential times and the world is changing faster than ever before. And at the moment, the world is changing at an incredible pace. And it's my job to stay up to date of whatever is happening. And even for me, it's difficult. So let alone for people who are just having a normal job and who are busy with their job and don't have the time to look outside and see how technology is changing the world. So yes, it's going incredibly fast, and that's also I think it's very exciting, but it's also very challenging.
Yes, and that really illustrates the importance of the job you have, because indeed I don't have the time. I would like to keep up with all the updates, but it's really a challenge. So more explicitly with regards to the metaverse, I think, Mark, if we would have had this conversation 1 year ago, probably a very, very tiny or select group would have known what we were going to talk about today. Maybe people who had watched the movie Ready Player One, or people who had read the book Snow Crash from Neil Stephenson, or maybe diehard crypto technologists, but I think it's still a very unexplored idea and concept. So maybe we can start with the basics, in as far as you can call it the basics, because it covers quite some material. But what, according to your research and findings from what you've seen, is the metaverse? What does it comprise?
Well, it's an important question you're asking, and for my book, Step into the Metaverse, I had just interviewed about 100 people, and I have received around 100 different answers to what is the metaverse. So I think that sort of shows you how vague a term it still is, and that people don't really understand or know, or there's no clear definition yet. Let's put it that way. So to me, what the metaverse is to me, and based on my research, so the metaverse is the convergence of the physical and the digital world, and that's the shortest definition I can give. And it's really where we merge the physical into the digital and the digital into the physical. And VR is one component of that, but definitely not the most important component of that. Personally, I think augmented reality will be far more important and have a far bigger impact than VR. And so I think when we have this convergence between the physical and the digital world, and that is made possible due to technologies, due to the convergence of all the technologies that we have, big data, blockchain, Internet of Things, robotics, the sensors that we use, the machine learning that we have, combined with the applications such as AR and VR, that is sort of where the metaverse is. And to me, there's only one metaverse. I don't believe people who say that they are developing the metaverse. That's the same thing as saying you're developing a internet, which to me doesn't make sense. The metaverse is just the next iteration of the internet. But it is an iteration where, as I said, the digital and the physical worlds are merging.
Yes, thank you for that clarification. And yeah, it indeed sounds really transformative. To tie into what you just said, you asserted that augmented reality will be way more important than virtual reality. Can you talk us through that a bit?
Of course. So the real world has infinite potential to be augmented with the digital world. Although at the moment VR is further ahead because it's easier to develop, because it's a closed environment, it's within your headset, and developing augmented reality is much more difficult because you're dealing with the physical world. But in the end, that will have much more potential because not everyone wants to live all the time in virtual reality. At least I hope not. We want to use augmented reality to change the world and to make the world more fun and to get rid of these laptops that we have, get rid of the smartphones that we have, and replace it with a smart glass or a smart lens in the future, where we can focus more and have a different perspective on the world. And I think because of that, I think augmented reality will be way bigger and way more important than virtual reality, because augmented reality will be used for everything from real life to fun and experience. And I think virtual reality will dominantly be used for more like fun, gaming, and that kind of things. Although it will also help with collaboration and digital twins and etc. But I think in the end, I foresee that augmented reality will have a bigger impact in the long run.
Okay, thanks for expanding on that. And for the people that are new to the metaverse and don't really have an idea on what it is from a market perspective, how big is the metaverse from a market perspective, and what is at stake when organizations and professionals have to think or are thinking about the metaverse?
Well, I guess the metaverse has infinite potential. There's research saying that the metaverse will be $1.5 trillion in 2030. I think PwC. Personally, I think it will be much bigger. Now, if we see how big the impact of the internet is, it's a multi-trillion dollar. Even only Apple by itself is a $3 trillion company as of today or yesterday, I think. So in the long run, the impact of the metaverse will be multiple dozens of trillions of dollars. Because literally everything and anything can be augmented. And that's from your body, that's from your office, that's from your home, that's the games, that's sports, that's manufacturing. Everything and anything can and will be augmented.
Sounds also kind of frightening that everything can be augmented, if I'm honest.
Oh, yeah, for sure, 100% true. Because if 10 years from now you walk down the street and you're not wearing augmented reality glasses, you miss out on all the fun and all the stuff happening for those people who do. Is it a good thing? I don't know. Is it a bad thing? Maybe. And that's sort of the potential that this has. Literally, as I said, literally anything can become possible. It's literally only bound by our own creativity and our own imagination, and the resources that we have, obviously. But based on that, we can create anything we want.
But if you think about it, a virtual world, as you're already describing, can be as imaginative and stimulating as you want it to be. So I can really imagine if it provides you with that constant stimulation and imagination, then the real world might become a bit boring, because this world doesn't offer that unlimited, infinite stimulation. What's your take on that? Because if we are looking at my environment, for example, now, I'm not saying that all my friends are highly addicted to Fortnite, but they spend significant amount of time in those virtual worlds already. But if you are really immersed, like three-dimensionally, yesterday I was in a roller coaster on my Oculus Quest 2, and it really felt like I was in there, but we are still at the doorstep of these technologies. Don't you think if these experiences become so immersive that this is, in a sense, kind of misaligned with what we want for our future generations? Or can you give some stuff here?
No, that's the real problem and a real challenge. I had some great conversation with people who are working on, and discussing and thinking about the mental issues of the metaverse, and they are real. As Marcus was saying, people already die literally when playing these games, especially in Asia. There are plenty of examples of unfortunately, of people dying behind their gaming computer.
Like physically or virtually?
Physically dying.
Oh, just to clarify.
That's horrible, and I think that will only be amplified in the metaverse, because as we saw in the movie Ready Player One, depending on how we are creating our physical world and how we are managing to combat the challenges that are ahead of us, we will have people will escape to a virtual reality where they can be anyone they want, anything they want, at any moment they will in time, and be wherever they want to be, whenever they want to be. So. Yes, I think that is a real problem, and that there's definitely no answer or solution to that yet.
Okay, yeah, interesting. If we circle back, Mark, to the fundamentals and underlying constituents of the metaverse, you already explained that it's the convergence of different technologies like VR, AR, blockchain coming together. But is it all? I've also heard the term Web 3.0 coined quite frequently. Are those two the same, or are they used interchangeably, or how do you see this?
They are not the same, but they benefit from each other, I would say. So Web3 is anything to do with a decentralized web, creating the web as it was originally envisioned, a web where we own our identity, where we own our data, where we own our reputation, and we are in full control of that. Not a world or a web that's owned by big tech. And you could say that Web3 should be the fundamental, should be the infrastructure of the metaverse. So that in a world where we will create 100 or 1,000 times much data as we do today, that we as a person, as an individual, own that data, control that data, and that not Facebook becomes Facebook times 100, because I think that would be very, very scary. And related to that, Web3 is all about, as I mentioned, decentralization, self-sovereignty, and it would enable a metaverse that is open and interoperable. If we're not able to create an open and interoperable metaverse, we will end up in a dystopian metaverse such as displayed in Ready Player One or Snow Crash, owned by a tiny elite who control whatever you want to do, who control your identity, and who can delete you at any moment in time. As a scary example from a couple of months ago, where an Australian artist, I forgot her name, but she had the handle of Metaverse on Instagram. And interestingly enough, like 1 or 2 days after Facebook changed their name to Meta, her entire identity on Instagram was deleted with push the button. 10 years of her work, everything was deleted simply because she owned the handle Metaverse. And apparently Mark Zuckerberg didn't like that. Only when she involved the New York Times was she able to get her handle back. When Instagram said, "Oh, I'm so sorry, we by accident deleted your account." We all know that's nonsense, and it shows the enormous power that these big tech companies have, and therefore I think Web3 is an absolute prerequisite if you want to create a metaverse that's not dystopian and controlled by Mark Zuckerberg.
Really sounds like I don't want to have a closed metaverse if I hear you're talking about.
You don't. You definitely don't, because if you spend, it's basically, you mentioned your friends, and I'm not sure if you also play Fortnite. I don't play Fortnite, but I can imagine if you spend a couple of hours a day on Fortnite, over a year, you spend hundreds of hours on Fortnite. Fortnite is a closed environment. It's called a metaverse. It's a game, but it's a closed environment. And you might even spend money, physical, real-world money, on buying skins and weapons and whatsoever in Fortnite. However, if you go to a bank and you say, "I want to obtain a loan," and as a collateral, I use my Fortnite profile because I spent thousands of hours there. I built a really valuable profile. I've earned tons of assets. I've invested hundreds or thousands of euros in it. The bank will probably look at you and think you're crazy, and because you can't take it out, it's stuck within the environment of Fortnite. And if Fortnite doesn't like you, with a push the button, they delete you, or a hacker for that matter. You don't want to live in an environment where you spend all your time and energy on building a profile, a reputation, which is as important as your identity, because it is you. It has a different avatar, different skin, different display, but in the end, it's you. And you want to be in control of it. And I think that's if we will see in the next decade, we will see the attempts of the Metas or the Facebooks of this world to create a closed walled garden. Hopefully, I sincerely hope that we as consumers will stand up and say, "Nah, we don't want this. Screw you, Mark Zuckerberg. We're going somewhere else," and that will mean the end to his empire, which I sincerely hope, because I don't like what he's doing. So yes, you don't want to live in a closed walled garden metaverse.
It's a really powerful and important stance and strong stance that you're taking there. And I remember when I was, I think, 13 years old, I really spent significant amount of time in RuneScape. I don't know if you're familiar with that game, but you could also acquire armor and increase your skill levels. But then after 1 year, my account got hacked. So you can imagine you're really invested with your time and passion and energy into that account, and it's also a centralized application. But especially if we are in this virtual world, I can not even grasp how tragic that would be if, with one push on the button, everything could be deleted. But at the same time, I feel, you say we have to stand up as consumers, but at the same time, I feel these big juggernauts really have trillions of dollars of capital. How can we really combat this kind of power?
just disconnect your Facebook and close down your WhatsApp and your Instagram, move to Signal, move to other decentralized applications that are being developed at the moment. That's the only way, we can vote with our data, and if we just leave. But the challenge here, and that's of course where the challenge lies, is that these are closed walled gardens for a reason, because it's an extremely powerful network effect. And you might remember last year when Facebook decided that, yes, we are going to use your WhatsApp data to sell you advertising, which they promised they wouldn't do when they bought WhatsApp. And so they're an absolutely unreliable party. A lot of people tried to leave, and a lot of people went from WhatsApp to Telegram to Signal. But the problem is that it's very difficult to switch to Signal or Telegram if not your entire social network also switches. And that's what these companies benefit from. That's why interoperability is absolutely crucial for the metaverse, that you can switch. If there is a company who doesn't play by the rules, you can just take your stuff, take your data, and leave. And at the moment, that's not possible, which is very interesting because when the internet was created and an email was created, I can email you with my Gmail account to your Hotmail account without any problem. Why can't I send you a text message from Signal to your WhatsApp? It's not possible. And I understand why it's not possible, because it's too big a data collection harvesting for these platforms. Facebook paid $19 billion with a reason, for WhatsApp. So, but this interoperability is absolutely crucial if we want to live in a world that is, I think, not dystopian. And I think that would be nice and pleasant.
So just to reiterate for the listeners who will be watching or listen to this podcast, it really needs to come from us, and no other authority or party will help us with that. We have the power in our own hands to do this.
Well, Zuckerberg obviously has no incentive to he thinks to do this. Because in his world, a closed walled garden means data, means advertising, means revenue. I would argue differently. I think if you would open up, you don't get a bigger chunk of the pie, but you create a bigger pie, and I think that benefits everyone. So Zuckerberg mentioned all the good things in his talk. He announced Meta, which is quite arrogant if you think about it, to claim the entire next iteration of the internet as in your name. He said all the right things. We need privacy, we need interoperability, we need standards, but nobody believes him, and I certainly don't. That he will stick up to these promises, because he never kept his promises, and he's only in there for the money.
So, do you then think that we should have complete entire decentralization in this future metaverse, or a hybrid, or what do you think?
I think at first it will be some kind of hybrid, simply because the technology is not there, so we don't have the capabilities of doing hyper realistic compute in a decentralized way. The latency and the throughput and compute and the bandwidth that's required for that is simply not there in a decentralized manner. That's why we have the big companies as AWS or Google Cloud or whatsoever. But I think in the long run, yes, hopefully we'll create a truly decentralized internet where if one node breaks down, that it doesn't break down the internet. In the past couple of years, we've seen quite a few times that AWS went down, and with it took like millions of websites that went down. You don't want that, or that a Chinese government can, or any government for that matter, can just censor any data that they don't like. I don't think we should want that, and therefore I truly hope that, and I think so, that eventually we will move to a truly decentralized web. But the technology needs to be developed for that. These are hard technical challenges that need to be solved.
Okay, speaking of decentralization, because if we are ultimately entirely decentralizing everything, what's your feeling on that? People that there will be potentially a complete chaos because everybody just does what he wants and there is no overarching authority or entity that can balance that out. What do you think about that?
Well, I thought long and hard about this because I think this is a crucial point because there are two problems here. One, self-sovereign identity is important but also problematic because people lose their wallets and their passports and smartphones all the time. So let alone if you lose your private key to your wallet that holds your identity, you sort of have a big problem. So you don't want that. So we need to find a solution for that. And there are a lot of people thinking hard about this. So that's one. The other point you make is, and I think is why we need not only self-sovereign identity, we also need a self-sovereign reputation, where just like in the real world, you have a reputation. You can basically, if you start screaming on the public square in Amsterdam, that will have consequences for you. And if you start insulting people on the public square in Amsterdam, that will have consequences for you. Because people know who you are. They will be filming you. They will be able to find out who you are. If you scream on Facebook and Twitter using an anonymous account, which people do all the time, it has zero consequences for you. And I think that's problematic. So what you want is you want to be able to create some kind of system, which I call anonymous accountability, where you can be 100% anonymous, but where you are being held accountable for your actions. And that works with a self-sovereign identity and a reputation that are tied to each other cryptographically, so that nobody knows who you are, but cryptographically it's linked to your identity, to your real-world identity. And if you continue to bash people, continue to have negative impact, even if you're anonymous, that will still have an impact on your reputation, and that will have consequences. Because if you have your reputation, I don't know, drops below whatever, then that you might not be able to do something. And these are really important things to think about because I was just, as part of my book, investigating this, that sexual harassment in the metaverse is a real thing. Is really happening. Women are being groped and sexually harassed while playing first-person shooters, while being in Horizon worlds, and that's the real problem. And so, yes, we need solutions for this. We need, code of conduct or maybe some kind of anti-harassment open source standard that developers can, implement using an API to automatically prevent these kind of things. Something like that, I think, is very, very important.
And these rules that you're illustrating, are they programmable all in these sort of smart contracts, or is that something detached from that?
I think so. If I do a grouping gesture in a game, the system should be able to recognize that as a grouping gesture. That can just be implemented as code. And if I do that if I do it in the middle of nowhere, fine, But if I do that close to another player, that is a problem. If I do that really close to a player, can be considered harassment, and you can just automatically ban someone for a minute or two. And not for long term, but for a minute to say, okay, you now stop. Wait a second. You can't play for a minute. If this is not allowed, we don't appreciate this kind of behavior. If you do this again, you'll be banned 5 minutes. And if you do it again, you ban 10 minutes, an hour, and etc. So I think that way, these things we can agree upon as a society that does that kind of behavior we don't want in games. Just like in the real world, we don't allow harassment. It still happens, unfortunately, way too often. We don't allow it. But in the digital world, we have more control of preventing it. There's absolutely no reason why I should be able to sexually harass a different player in a game, because that can be programmatically prevented. You understand? So and then I was reading the articles related to that, where in the beta environment of Horizon Worlds, they basically said, it was the woman's mistake because she didn't use her protection mechanisms. I'm sorry, but I think that's total nonsense. You should not allow it in the first place to happen. And you can't put the responsibility on the victim who is being sexually harassed. So,
I completely
think this is something that...
I completely agree, Mark. I think sexual harassment is completely out of order. But when you were describing this explanation, I also felt like, where is the boundary between freedom of expression and sexual harassment? Because I'm also very competitive, and when I play a game, I can make some not so nice words, to say it nuanced, and that maybe not intentionally targeted towards someone. So that was what I was thinking about. However, that's a complete other discussion. I would like to circle back briefly on the technology. How far are we in creating the hardware, the software, the infrastructure, the underlying protocols, the governance mechanisms that you've just described, and the security for creating and enabling such a metaverse?
Well, I think we are really early days. I think you could compare. We are almost to where the internet was in 1998 or so, or even earlier.
That's really early. Okay.
We are really early days, and it won't take 20 years. It will probably take 7 to 10 years before we reach the same level. But it is really early days. Now, I was speaking to Neil Trafford. He's the CEO, the president of the Kronos Group, who is involved with standards, and he basically said we need a constellation of standards to enable this interoperability. And standards generally take time, which is a good thing because then people discuss them and we come to an agreement. But that's one thing. We also need the right infrastructure. There's of course a reason why avatars on the various platforms are low polygon at the moment, because having hyper-realistic avatars requires just way too much compute power, and your Oculus Quest 2 will not be able to handle that. So there's a lot of infrastructure standards that still needs to be developed to make this happen. And I think in addition, also from a software perspective, yes, we see these great programs, Reallusion, Character 4, iClone 8, Blender, Unreal Engine 5, Unity, who have made it already super easy to create these digital worlds. But still, this is only available to a very, very small group of people who know how to deal with these technologies. It's again as if we are back in the early days of the internet, when setting up a website was really, really hard. And nowadays it's a 5-minute process from WordPress, and that's where we need to go to. So that will take a while, I think.
Yeah, it makes sense. So we're really at the doorstep of what's about to happen. So what do you think in the coming 1 to 5 years are the events that may sequentially unfold towards the path to the metaverse?
I think it's a good question, difficult one to answer. I think a key point will be the launch of Apple's Glass or headset or whatever they're going to launch, potentially end of this year, early next year, because most likely it will be a very expensive device, as all Apple devices are, and then at some point, at a later point, these devices will become cheaper. So that's we need a device that's just like the Oculus Quest 2, which is a very, very good device, but still quite bulky. But we need a device that's easy to handle, easy to use, that your grandmother can use for that matter. So I think that's important. Well, we need an iPhone moment, basically. And like the iPhone moment, and especially the iPhone 3G, when we got also the App Store, that was really the Kickstarter of the mobile internet, where we got apps, where it became super easy to to bring your little program to the masses and for everyone to use it. And at first, we built these stupid apps, with drinking a beer glass using your iPhone, where you could see the glass empty and it made a sound, because we had no idea what to build. And nowadays, look at all the kind of apps and the cool technologies that we have. And I think we'll follow the exact same path for the metaverse. We cannot foresee what people will build 5 years from now.
Probably what we are talking about now will be outdated in a couple of months.
Oh, yes, for sure.
Yeah. I can imagine. And by the way, for the investors listening, this is no financial advice or in any way or any sense with regards to Apple, but a good point. I'm interested in following that. And with regards to jobs, what kind of new jobs do you think are going to emerge from this new Web 3.0 or the Metaverse? And maybe more explicitly, what kind of jobs that were relevant, such as web developers or back-end developers in Web 2.0, will be maybe less relevant in Web 0.3, and which jobs that weren't as relevant back then will be maybe more relevant in the future? What's your take on that?
Well, I think that, again, it's also very difficult to give a good answer on that, but we will get, if you look at what is important for the metaverse, it's a seamless experience. It's UI, UX. Is very, very important. So UI, UX metaverse designers will become important. We see that AI is having a big impact on augmenting careers and helping also developers writing code. We have GPT-3 who can assist you in writing code. And we have AI that can create child AI. So that will only further.
Yeah, can I step into there, because that was really something I bloody was burning to ask you because of your thorough AI background. What do you think the role of AI will be in creation and building these components of the metaverse? And another thing, GTP3, I recently watched a video about it, and it was really mind-blowing how realistic to real humans they are already communicating and articulating things. Maybe even better, maybe they could already even do a better podcast than I am doing. Not that I claim that I'm a good podcaster, because I'm just beginning, but you're really sophisticated. How do you think we are able to distinguish in the metaverse a real human from an AI avatar, for example? Are you worried about that, or is that not a concern at all? What's your view on this?
No, I'm very worried about that. And I think if I can create an avatar of myself, you can create an avatar of me as well. And using deepfake audio, you can dub that avatar and you can be me in the metaverse. So yes, that is a problem. So that's something we So metaverse, to come back to your question about jobs, metaverse security will be a real thing. Metaverse police will probably be a real thing. How that will look like, I don't know. Will it be AI? Could be. So it's AI is going to be an important aspect of the metaverse because it will enable a wide variety of tasks. The developments in AI are going incredibly fast at the moment. So the combination of that, together with a different way of organizing our society, we will have different jobs. We'll have new jobs. We'll lose a lot of jobs. But it will be an exciting time for sure.
Yes, I'm interested, and I definitely think cybersecurity is already an immensely important topic, but will only proliferate in the future. So how do you think, maybe a segue, because a lot of people ask when we speak about crypto or new technologies or games, how will this solve real world problems like maybe climate change, or I don't know how it solves nuclear weapons, but how do you see, what applications do you see for the metaverse in solving real world problems?
Well, the metaverse can very much well be used to change how we work. The pandemic, if there's one silver lining in the pandemic, it's that we've moved to remote work without much of a problem. And the metaverse will only increase that. So if I can meet someone with a hyper-realistic holographic projection using my AR glasses, I don't need to travel to the other side of the world to see that person, because I can just be with that person in the same room while being geographically apart. So from that perspective, I think this will definitely help. We can use AI and digital twins to optimize and create better products. With quantum computing, we will be able to solve hopefully many of the big problems that we have. So I think it's yes, the metaverse is about fun and experiences and creativity and art and imagination. But the metaverse is also about enabling and optimizing collaboration and connecting people that previously would not be connected otherwise. And that in itself can already lead to new inventions.
Yeah, I can definitely see how deeply transformative it will be for the future of work, especially with the pandemic that we are in and the constraints that we have with working on distance. So also being aware of time and the programs that we both have to close off with. Maybe there is also there is a group of people that is completely unfamiliar with all these underlying concepts, because we have talked about different technologies like crypto, VR, AR, and for the people that are listening that are thinking, oh, this metaverse is interesting, maybe I should do something with that. What would your advice be for this group in acquiring a better understanding and getting up to speed and starting with this entire concept of the metaverse?
Yeah, well, I would just get into it, or in line with that book, step into the metaverse. Buy yourself a headset, an Oculus, and explore and go into games and see how it works, and get some crypto and using your wallet and see how that works. Buy an NFT, mint an NFT. Just play around and explore, and don't spend hundreds of dollars on it, but just do it small, just to learn what's happening and how it works and which direction it goes. So that would be my best advice. Just step into the metaverse.
So should the listeners tomorrow buy a Quest 2 or maybe from another party, or can they also step into the metaverse from their desktop or from their mobile?
You can, of course, also step into the metaverse from your smartphone, or your desktop. As I mentioned at the start, VR is obviously only one way to enter the metaverse. The other one is augmented reality, but the other one is also just your desktop. There are plenty of games or blockchain games available. Decentraland, the Sandbox, Crypto Voxels, Axie Infinity, which are considered to be part of the metaverse already, and you can just dive into that and explore and see how it works and play a little bit and walk around, and if you like it, good. If you don't like it, good as well, and try something else.
All right, thanks. I definitely think they can do something with that. Well, Mark, you really have a broad and deep understanding acquired within such a short time. Yeah, of course, you have already broad experience with other technologies, but thank you for showing so much wisdom in a clear and compelling way. And it's really an intriguing idea, and it kind of scares me at the same time, but I think these narratives and dialogues really help in exploring and learning how to prepare and what to think of it. Really insightful.
Well, it's been my pleasure, Samir. Happy to share some of my thoughts, and thanks for inviting me to your show.
You're welcome, anytime. And I think we should run this again in about half a year or something to see how immensely everything has changed, because I can imagine it might be drastically different. And by the way, I'm really interested also in the findings of unlocking the social immersive economy. Your book, when will it become out? Will it come out, Mark?
Yeah, sure. So my book Step into the Metaverse will be available early June on all the major online platforms. You can already pre-order it on Amazon, and I'm very curious to hear your thoughts when it's available.
Definitely, I'm going to make a thesis of it and show you the findings, but maybe also critics. So let's see.
That sounds good.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
So that was the first podcast of Metaverse Mentors. Really interesting conversation with Mark. I personally learned a lot and found it a really insightful conversation. I could really tell that he had done some deep research into the metaverse for his new book. And also saw that he really stressed the importance of an open metaverse, which I personally find really insightful and interesting as well. And simultaneously was also a new experience for me. Podcasting was the first time for Metaverse Mentors. In the beginning, a bit uncomfortable, but I always say outside of the comfort zone is where you are learning, and I'm really looking forward to the next episodes. So did you find this podcast insightful, or did you enjoy the content? Please put a like on the button below, or did you have some findings or suggestions or remarks about other guests or what we discussed? Please let us know in the comments. And if you would like to know more, please subscribe also on the button below. See you next time.